Just 6 points divides 4th place to 13th, and amongst that chaos, amongst that congestedness, amongst that competition, David Moyes' Everton sits 6th place in the Premier League. 6th place with no Jarrad Branthwaite, 6th place with Gana Gueye suspended and hardly any midfielders. Today's video will look at just how Moyes doing it. We'll be looking at how he's maximising the most out of his squad, but also the weekend's victory over Nottingham Forest and ndiaye. Now, it's been a while since I did a video on Everton, and since then a lot has happened. A last gasp winner to the best performing away team in the Premier League, heavy losses at home to Tottenham and Newcastle, but impressive wins against Manchester United, Bournemouth and now Nottingham Forest. When Everton lose, they lose by a sizable margin, but when they win, it seems to be with a clean sheet and a very solid defensive performance. Hence why they have 4 clean sheets in their last 5. To me, when I've watched Everton this season, for the most part, I think they've been average. A lot of performances have been average, the data on the most part says they've been average, but at the same time Moyes is missing key figures and really maximising the most out of his squads, the most out of average players. That's not an insult, but some players are average and it's a compliment to David Moyes. Now, some players, of course, like James Garner, like Jack Grealish, like Ndiaye, Dewsbury-Hall, Pickford, have been brilliant, and they are brilliant. But any manager that's made Michael Keane quietly one of the most underrated players in the league this season deserves credit, and probably stronger recruitment. Michael Keane was a car crash of a footballer before Moyes arrived back in Jan. Now he's enjoying a pretty strong season next to James Tarkowski, filling in for the absence of the brilliant Jarrad Branthwaite, who is a huge miss. Moyes is without any athleticism or speed in his fullbacks, especially right back, with Jake O'Brien, predominantly a centre back, who fills in there for the injured Seamus Coleman and the injury-ridden Nathan Patterson behind him. Mykolenko might share the athleticism, but not so much any technical qualities, with Adam Asnou seemingly not ready behind him. And then midfield, Merlin Rowe, injured, Idrissa Gana Gueye, injured, and Afghan Jew. Timo Rubedan, suspended, and fills into the list of average players Moyes is polishingly maximising the most out of. So that only leaves Ghana, Dewsbury-Hall and Alcaraz in the midfield. And when reflecting on the attack, the Toffees have been lacking clinical edge, much consistency whatsoever. This piles up, leaving 2 senior goalkeepers on the bench and not a whole lot of rotation offered to David Moyes in this testing December period. This makes Everton being 6th place and just 2 points off the top 4 so much more impressive. Individually, he's platforming players to their strengths and he's finding ways to adapt to obstacles whilst maintaining balance in the team. But most importantly, every game that Everton go into, the energy levels and work rate feels the exact same. The levels, the standards are very, very high. That compact, tricky, hard-working, gritty nature to Everton's side is never lost, even after an odd defeat. A 3-0 home loss to Spurs responded with 2 wins in the following 3, including one at Old Trafford with only 10 men. A 4-1 heavy defeat at home to Newcastle responded with 2 clean sheets and 2 wins. As a man manager, Moyes is absolutely tremendous at picking his team up and sustaining performance levels. That itself is bigger than tactics and roles and systems and whatever. But Moyes loves balance amongst that pair in midfield, but with suspensions and injuries, that's been stripped away from him. So let's have a look at how he's adapted and how he took down ndiaye on his return. So on a miserable return for ndiaye, these were the 2 starting 11s. As we can see, there's no Gana Gueye, there's no real midfielding presence. So there's slight imbalance here. And if you told an Everton fan this would be the lineup before the season, you'd probably have worries over this midfielding pivot, as Dewsbury-Hall is a player that likes to commit forwards. But these were the 2 teams, and within this game, there were a lot of key performers. Kieran and Dewsbury-Hall being the main one, Alcaraz was good, ndiaye fantastic for Thierno Barry's goal, and of course Thierno Barry himself, an excellent display. But if we have a look at Everton and their usual setup and take Nottingham Forest out of the equation, off the ball, this is what they are. Dewsbury-Hall is leading the press, not within the midfield. David Moyes likes that secure double pivot. If we have a look at On the ball, it's the exact same. David Moyes likes that secure double pivot, but of course, with the loss of Gana Gueye, he can't quite have this. This is their shape on the ball, and it's important for these four players to really cover in the counter press and keep Everton secure. But in this game, David Moyes adapted, and he did so in tremendous fashion. I think he did a really good job of nullifying Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest in their build-up have always had issues, but the most influential player in their build-up is this man just here. So let's have a look at how Everton nullified Elliot Anderson as well as Nottingham Forest. Now, the concern for me when I saw Dewsbury-Hall started midweek against Bournemouth in the double pivot was the imbalance out of possession, because if you have Charlie Alcaraz this high and Tiano Barry, Dewsbury-Hall isn't that much of a deep player, so there's potential for gaps to emerge within these half spaces that certain teams can overload. They can overwhelm Everton, but this wasn't the case at all. Why wasn't this the case? Well, it was all about how Everton used Charlie Alcaraz. Everton were mostly sitting in a 4-1-4-1 shape, or a 5-4-1, whatever you want to look at it. But the point was, Alcaraz was used a little bit differently, instead of leading the press with Tiano Barry. Now, Everton off the ball is not a completely different system. Just because it looks slightly different in shape, it still works the same. When the ball was shifted out wide, that's when they were particularly proactive in their press, whether that was Ndiaye with O'Brien covering him, or whether that was Williams and ndiaye. The same on the opposing flank. And what works really well here is the fact that Nico Williams is a wrong-footed left back. He wants to come inside. Everton nullified Forest on the insides, so there was no pass for Nottingham Forest here. But Elliot Anderson was sort of pocketed in some ways. He still had a decent game, but he was nullified. He couldn't make those piercing balls forward like he always does, and that's all because Charlie Alcaraz was onto him, tracking him, and that's how Moyes nullified them. Nottingham Forest have had a big issue this season when teams are looking to concede possession against them and test them to say, can you break us down? Well, a lot of teams have been successful in saying that to Nottingham Forest. Everton are another one. There was an encounter last season where Everton beat Nottingham Forest under Nuno Espirito Santo at the City Ground that was similar to this as well. But Everton, in their recruitment, bringing in Grealish, Dewsbury-Hall, Tiano Barry, are now more effective at this method. But whenever Elliot Anderson got the ball, that is exactly when Charlie Alcaraz would trigger the press. Whenever the ball was with Morato, sometimes while Elliot Anderson was asking for the ball, Charlie Alcaraz was standing in the way, as you can see by a few images there. He was tightly close to him, but he was blocking the passing lane. He was blocking that easy access. And Nottingham Forest aren't the most amazing team on the ball. Morato isn't exactly a ball-playing centre-back, neither is Milenkovic. So they really struggled to get the ball into Anderson. It wasn't a case of passing it into Sangare and finding it into Anderson as well. Dewsbury-Hall was tracking onto him as well. So it was really difficult for Nottingham Forest to formulate any build-up and fluidity in the middle of the park, all because Elliot Anderson was took out of the game, because David Moyes recognised that if we stop Elliot Anderson, we stop Nottingham Forest progressing up the pitch. And as you can see by the stats, Nottingham Forest struggled to create absolutely anything in this game. Moyes' setup was absolutely fantastic, but the setup wouldn't be complete with how consistently good Everton are in the air. Whenever a ball was pumped forwards, it was bang, a recovery, bang, an aerial duel, and Everton won it every single time. They are so good at this, but they are consistently good at this, as you can see by the numbers on your screen just now. First for aerial duels won. They've got the 6th best defence, first in terms of blocks, 7th in XG conceded, tackles won and recoveries, which just indicates that Everton are consistently good in this department. If Everton lose, they'll still be well drilled. They'll come back in the next game. They maintained that compactness. And because Nottingham Forest were really struggling on the ball, Everton's goals sourced from turnovers, and Everton hitting them where it hurts twice in the game, right before half time and right at the start of the game, to really set the tempo and set the game alight for them. Anderson would sometimes flirt further up the pitch, so this took Alcaraz into a deep position, but Nottingham Forest don't keep the ball very well. They were probably stuck within their own minds. We don't want to fall into slow passing build-up. Of course, Dyche doesn't really like that. Dyche does like direct balls. Well, they weren't winning the direct balls. It was headed away by Tarkowski, cleared away from Gana, and then you have the sheer explosiveness of Everton in transition. Thierry Barry, really fast, brilliant sprinter. Alcaraz, pretty good ball progressor. He can carry the ball well and he can carry it securely. Iliman and ndiaye, probably one of the brilliant ball carriers in the league. Immense level skill, immense level close ball control. Jack Grealish, not the fastest sprinter, not the most intense, but his ball carrying creativity is brilliant. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, a very fast hustling sprinter and fast ball carrier as well. So there was just so much for Nottingham Forest to deal with in transition. They couldn't contain this threat, and it was absolutely fantastic. They transitioned up the pitch fantastically, but also when Nottingham Forest hit them on the break, they transitioned defensively just as well, doubling up out wide whenever Ndiaye had the ball. When it was on the right side, sometimes they were even tripling up, with Dewsbury-Hall shifting across. So this made ball progression really difficult for Nottingham Forest and very easy for Everton just to win the ball back and nullify them. Now, if we shift Everton into a more fluid on the ball shape, then what was very interesting in this game was the midfield setup. It was very fluid, even if they didn't spend that much time on the ball. If we shift players into their natural positions just for a sec, if you just bear with me, then it looks slightly like this. The midfield was that midfield three of Alcaraz, Gana and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Now, Gana was always holding that defensive midfield role, but Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall was the one that was deeper, that would get a bigger touch for the ball. Alcaraz was pushing within this right half space, and it worked very fluidly. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall would arrive from a high position. This would give him more time on the ball. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall isn't the most quick-footed player, technical player. He's very left-footed, so I think he needs that time on the ball, that bit of assurance, and not pressed so heavily. So this gave him the time on the ball and allowed Everton to securely funnel the ball round within the midfield park. But the biggest difference for me is that, of course, Everton are so reliant on progressing the ball down that left-hand side. But for me in this game, there was a clear development in how they utilised that left-hand side. Jack Grealish was supported not only with Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall in the left half space, but also Mykolenko. So whenever Jack Grealish had the ball 1v1 versus the right back, he had two options to pass to. You've got to unleash Jack Grealish creatively and maximise the movement around Jack Grealish if you're going to be this reliant down progressing down the left hand side. Of course, down the right you have Jake O'Brien, not really a high flying fullback, and then ndiaye, who likes to drift in. So if you're going to rely on the left hand side, you need to maximise the left hand side, and I thought Everton did that really well. Use Mykolenko's energy to constantly overlap Grealish. Use Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall as a late runner into the half spaces, as he was so effective there. His movement was relentless and Nottingham Forest just couldn't handle it. I thought they were tracking onto Dewsbury-Hall very well, even into the first goal, but they just couldn't handle his relentless movements. But that constant energy and running power just overwhelmed Nottingham Forest, and I think Everton had a great game. It was a great setup from David Moyes, and fair play to him. I mean, Nottingham Forest aren't the most sexy team on the ball. Of course, any Sean Dyche team isn't going to be the most appealing on the ball, as Everton fans know. But if you take away their biggest threats, you nullify it, you sustain it, you just lessen it, then you have a big chance of winning. And that's how Everton did so. The constant running power, everything was fantastic within this performance, but it was the duels, recoveries, the sharpness that really made this Everton performance so good. If you enjoyed today's video, feel free to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. Where do you think Everton are going to finish this season? They're in 6th place. Yes, they're short on depth, but David Moyes is a good manager and David Moyes has gotten Europe before. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.